So, talking about this particular this particular news. Now, just like the Republican national the Republican has the same thing. The Democrats also have their national convention, and just like the Republican National Convention had endorsed Donald Trump to be their presidential candidate, the Democratic National Convention in Chicago has rallied behind Kamala Harris. Now, both these particular candidates have a very different, political ideology, whereby Kamala Harris talks about that there should not be white supremacy, whereas if you see the speeches of Donald Trump, it kind of links towards white supremacy. It kind of links towards a discrimination against minority, a discrimination against people who are coming from outside. So they are fighting on different kinds of political spectrum, and it has a huge implications for the world at a whole. And in fact, if you see, the entire world is waiting for the November elections, because once the November elections happen, then you would have clarity that who are you dealing with. Once you know who are you dealing with, then you can have your strategies accordingly. So this is extremely important. Then India must extradite Hasina. She has to face the trial. We've discussed about all of these, and we also understood the articles under which India can deny the extradition of Sheikh Hasina, and the fact that yes, we have a exchange of this thing, extradition treaty, which was further amended in 2016, and we've already had certain cases where certain elements, anti-India elements, were extradited, of ULFA were extradited from Bangladesh to India. So this is something that you already know. Then, if you want to read this interesting news, in Uganda capital, Boda Boda motorcycles are the source of life and death. So it carries everyone. In Kampala, they carry everyone, and interesting news that you can read. Now, let's read about one of the most important articles of the day, which is yeah, which is the government has basically backtracked on lateral entry. Now, one of the problems that this government has is now starting to face is that it has now realized that it's a coalition government. This is something new, because before this, whenever it used to take a decision, it used to take the decision and then seek people's advice. Now, what has happened is that we've seen this thrice now. We've seen this in the case of in the case of Waqf board as well. Waqf board, by the way, has now gone to the joint parliamentary committee. We have also seen the same case when it comes to budget. The entire budget was rallied with mentioning of Andhra Pradesh and TDP, Andhra Pradesh and Bihar, and now we are also seeing the same thing in case of lateral entry, where the government had to backpedal and then say that no, we are going to look at this from a fresh perspective, and think of this as also incorporate reservation into this. Now, there are two three important articles. There are two three important articles that I want you to read, because this is a question of debate, folks. This is a question of important debate. This is a question for all of you. This is an important question for people in public administration. This is an important question to be studied, and in fact, for ethics and even for your essay, you could have certain pointers from this. So let us understand that this debate, and then we will move forward with other articles. Now, the first part of the debates starts with no shortcuts, where we say that, as I told you, that the government has been put on the back foot a number of times, because it has not been consulting its coalition partners. So it does not consult with TDP, JDU, and LJP, and this has happened because, and we have seen step backs on Waqf board, as I told you. Then the broadcasters bill was again put on hold. If you remember, the broadcasters bill we had discussed, and even news, I mean YouTubers, people like me would also be under the broadcasters bill. So all of that now is under hold. We will see another development coming up soon on the economy page. But at the same point of time, in case of this lateral entry, what was happening was the government said that all these different ministries are single units, and because they are single units, you do not need reservation in these. And then another issue is that no one challenges the fact that we do not need specialization at the in the middle level or the senior level of bureaucracy. In fact, there have been a number of reports. There have been something called as second administrative commission reports. Now, people, you need to read certain administrative commission reports for your GS. You should be aware about it. People in your coaching should have taught you these administrative committee reports. At least some of them, you should have a broad idea. And it is very important from your mains perspective. They were led by Virappa Moli. Then you have the sixth pay commissioner, which again talks about the same thing, the recommendations of Niti Aayog. So we already know that there are certain I mean backgrounds in which lateral entry is required. But at the same point of time, another very important debate, at the same point of time, the problem arises when the demand for expertise and merit are basically range against social justice and equality. And these are not agnostic terms. These are not terms which are which are against each other. As the Honorable Supreme Court recently in the subquotas of SC/ST said, and remember this line: the binary of merit and reservation must be challenged in a country with great inequalities. That you cannot see black and white here. You cannot see that either you will have merit or you will have reservation. We have a country where we have so much of inequality, and we should think of this as, we should think of merit should be seen as a social good of equality and inclusivity. We have to see equality as well, we have to see inclusivity as well. So someone who is not able to afford, so someone who's been discriminated, someone who did not have access to the education that you might have, should be given a preference over you, because that person is fighting against all odds to come at the same stage. So we need to see merit not just in terms of marks. We also need to see merit with equality and inclusivity. So it is a conflict between haves and have-nots, and not a conflict between merit and distributive justice. So don't think of reservation as something which is merit and non-merit. Now, all of this this is the political thing. Then we had also let me complete this entire topic, and then we'll lead to other things. There's another article, needed lateral thinking. Now this is beautiful article, and I want you to take down this particular section of this article, whereby by the way, this is written by a former cabinet secretary, which is the highest post a civil servant can get to. So what KM Chandrasekhar has written is that SK Das has written a book which is building the world class civil services for 21st century India. Now you need to remember this book, because if you're writing about bureaucracy, you can quote this particular book, and most bureaucrats would have read this. And you can also say, you can also name KM Chandrasekhar and his views, because he's a cabinet secretary, a former cabinet secretary. Now, what this article says is that the civil services in India has basically carried on the same kind of rigidness, the same kind of centrality, the same kind of hierarchy. So there are three things which are associated with the 19th century bureaucracy, which you might have people from public administration which might relate to something called as Weber's model of bureaucracy. So our bureaucracy is hierarchical. There are one person over the other person. I'll explain you this problem, because see, even if suppose if I go and join as joint secretary in a particular ministry, there are 2-3 people which are extremely important above me, which is, one is additional secretary, then is the secretary, and then you have the cabinet secretary. So will all of them accept me as an outsider? It looks unlikely. People from outside will be very I mean, people from the inside will be very receptive, as someone who has joined as a deputy director, or a director, or a joint secretary. Do they have enough power? Do they can they rally everyone around themselves to work for a centralized goal? That seems very daunting. In fact, most of the private sector people who from the private sector who have been hired by the government had a very single mind focus. For example, this article talks about the example of Nandan Nilekani. Now, Nandan Nilekani was from the private sector. He was roped in for one objective, which is to give identity to each individual. And he was under Manmohan Singh government. He was given the cabinet rank. So, because once you give the person a minister, a cabinet minister rank, then you make everyone else junior to it, and everyone else will have to report to this person. Now, I'll explain you this important thing. Before Nandan Nilekani was given the cabinet rank, when he was just an advisor to the government, what used to happen was that he used to call different secretaries, and these secretaries would send their joint secretaries. Then they would not come for the meeting. They would say that who is this outsider, and why is this outsider calling me to his office? So once this rank and file system is now there, once you gave this rank and file system, then every secretary came to power, because now you're being called by a minister rank person. So these are also important, and same is the question. So you can take these very two good examples. And S Ramadorai, again his work was for skill development, and all of them were given these cabinet secretary ranks. So rank and file in Indian civil services is still very hierarchical. You can understand from that. It is rigid, and it is centralized. It's a centralized system, and in fact, with time, after independence, it has become even more rigid, even more outdated, even more cumbersome in terms of rules. It believes in following the process rather than the outcome. That is one of the major problems of the Indian bureaucratic system. But once we show them, but this is how the system is set. But once we show them an outcome based system, once we move the system to a outcome output and outcome system, then this same bureaucracy performs excellently. So, for example, coming up with something like Cowin app, coming up with something like ONDC, all of these are done by bureaucracy. So bureaucracy can also deliver really well, coming up of UPI. So which means that it's the same bureaucracy which is being criticized, and the same bureaucracy which is also building the world class digital public infrastructure, which shows that what is important is that the orientation of the bureaucrats needs to change. They need to change towards an output and outcome mode bureaucracy, rather than with flexibility and maybe some help from outside. But the bureaucracy has fundamental they do have fundamental systems in them for them to develop the country. Then what are the changes that are needed? So this part of the article basically says that the political ownership at the center and the state needs to empower authorities. Once they give all the freedom to these bureaucrats and to the private sector, if they are heading a particular scheme, then this will come. The other is that that India is basically union of states. If it's a union of states, you need to identify that center and states both are extremely important. So if you think of labor laws, we passed the labor laws way back in 2020. None of them have been implemented. Why? Because the states and centers are not under cohesion. So you need people who can take people together. So you need people like Arun Jaitley, who could take all the states together. So what is needed is that acceptance of states is needed, and this is where Niti Aayog's role is very important, because all chief ministers are members of Niti Aayog. So if you want to use lateral interns, if you want to use expertise, use the expertise on Niti Aayog. Then you also can study from Australia and New Zealand. These systems have been very adaptive, and we can learn from these systems. We have the Commonwealth Secretariat which can help us, and then we should have the meetings of cabinet secretary and secretary of Department of Administrative Reforms, and they could hold meetings with chief secretaries of different states, and then work out problems with respect to coordination of different areas. So I mean, these are the reforms that we might need as compared to a single shot thinking. And this part of the article basically says that, see, the corporate sector is different from the public sector. Corporate sector has a profit motive. The Indian public sector has a different motive. They have their social motives, they have education, other areas. So a lateral entry will not serve. All the things which are problematic in the country cannot be solved with lateral entry. Then you have the final article, which is related to lateral entry, which completes our analysis of this particular topic, which is on the explained page. That long before today's lateral entry, even Nehru's government had basically sought people from the open market. So if you see GB Pant, so GB Pant, who was the home minister, had basically said that we need a brilliant cadre, and exhausted the center. We have no men who can be appointed for the post of deputy secretaries, etc. So what had happened was they started hiring people from even outside. So in 1956 they had fixed income floor of 300 rupees. At By the way, the 300 rupees at that point of time was huge, and from the open market, who can apply. At the same point of time, this yes at the same point of time, what has happened was that all these quotas were still being given. You had the SC and the ST quota when these seats were being filled from the open market. But at the same point of time, what was being seen is that the Communist Party leader, one of the Communist Party leader, A.K. Gopalan. This Gopalan guy is very important from the point of view of your polity. By the way, when you will read polity, you will read this name A.K. Gopalan again. So they said that ordinary people were not able to apply to the civil services, and the civil services in the open market is only for those who are extremely rich, and therefore this should be removed. So what is being said is that, yes, the lateral entry was not a brainchild of Manmohan Singh. This was also held during in the Nehru's time, as well as after Nehru's time it was done. So read about these articles, and you will get a complete picture of lateral entry. Now let's move to the other news. Yes. With respect to the Kolkata rape murder, CBI status report will come today, and what we have is that the Supreme Court has recently pulled up the Bengal government, and what is important is the Supreme Court has yesterday has formed a task force for safety of medicos. This is what they have done. As we've said, this is what happens in India. Either the central government will come up with a task force, or the state government will come up with a task force, and then it will talk about different safety measures for all medicos. But these are all knee-jerk reactions, folks. This is something which is expected. We've already read that this is what will happen. This is what happens in India. Once such things are there, then you have these individual actions and individual reports that take place. But a more important article with respect to this is this, written by an IPS officer who's currently serving an SP in UP. Now she writes an interesting article, and this also reconfirms what we had talked about yesterday, that we right now have an elitist and a caste and class bias towards all the cases of women. We report about the crimes against women if they happen in Delhi, if they happen in Kolkata, if they happen, but once they happen in rural areas, once they happen in tier 3, tier 4 cities, these do not get prominence until unless they get a political color. And for most political parties, this is an opportune moment to politicize this horrific incident and gain political mileage. They're not concerned with women's safety. Although I might sound cynic with respect to this, but this is something that we've seen for a number of years. And this is also being reinforced by this particular article, which says that why are these crimes happening? Are there not enough laws in India? Do we need a sufficient deterrent? In fact, I only partially agree with this particular article. I'll tell you why. Now, this article starts with the fact that statistics tell us that you have dowry deaths in India every 90 minutes. And then if you see the dowry this thing in case of dowry cases, the conviction rate is shockingly low, because there is something called blood money. So suppose even if someone's daughter got killed in a matrimonial dispute, you pay the family some money, and then you have compromises. So and this is with respect to death cases, folks. When it comes to domestic violence, India is replete with domestic violence cases, but the imprisonment is up to only 3 years, and any particular criminal non-bailable offence, if the imprisonment, by the way, in CRPC or in BNSS, if the imprisonment is less than 7 years, then what happens is that the court basically says that bail is the rule, and jail is the exception. So you can easily get away with this. And similar are the cases with respect to stalking and harassment. Now you need to think that domestic violence, stalking, harassments are the first order crimes. Especially stalking and harassment are first order crimes. Once you say that you can go you can go scot free with respect to stalking and harassment, you might get into domestic violence, then you might get into the world of serious crimes, which is rape and murder. So we need to check. What the article basically says is that we need to have an effective check at the first stage itself. The legal impunity with which people walk away with harassment, people walk away with stalking, is something that needs to be curbed. And we need to set an example where you have fast track courts, you're dealing with all these issues of harassment on a very strict penal provision. And this is where the courts must go down on these extrajudicial compromises. They should also be serious with respect to all these cases. But my particular view is that, see, she comes from a police background, and from a police background she sees this as an ineffective law, or lack of law issue. India is not a country where you have lack of laws. You have sufficient amount of laws. In fact, the more laws that you will bring, the more complexity you will bring. You need a supply side also problem. This is also a behavioral issue. Are we sensitizing the men? Are we sensitizing the population with respect to respecting women? That is the educational, that is the long term plan that we should have. So this my personal perspective is, this is just just basically capping, trying to cap something which is problematic. You're not addressing the solution per se. Where is the cancer coming from? You're not addressing those cancer cells. You're trying to just give a chemo to a patient. So this is something. This is my view. You can probably write your own view when you're writing. Then let's come to another article, silence, because this is also related to this. The silence is broken. We read about what has happened in Kerala. There was an actress which was abducted, and then she was sexually assaulted. And there was this Hema committee report, Hema committee, which was set up in 2017. It gave its report in 2020, but the powers to be in the Malayalam film industry did not allow this report to be published. And now that it has been published, it is completely redacted. Basically, you cannot read in names there. And but what is more important is that it identifies the fact that there are, I mean, just like Bollywood, there are demands for sexual favors in exchange for work. You have late night knocks, basic facilities like toilets and changing rooms are missing, and then you have holding of remuneration and threat of bans. all of these are, I would say this is not just with the Malayalam film industry. I'm 100% sure this is also the case with the Hindi film industry. Now, but this basically shows that steps needs to be taken. The Kerala High Court has basically also asked all these film houses, production houses, to follow what is called as internal complaints committee. Now you should, if you don't really know about internal complaints committee, you should be aware about this, which all organization needs to have it. This is mandated under POSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, which came from Vishaka guidelines of Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan, that led to the POSH Act, which led to the constitution of ICC. So any particular sexual harassment issue is basically goes to the ICC, and which it's the internal complaints committee which takes the action against the perpetrator. Then apart from that, we need I mean you can also read about Rima Kalingal, which basically talks about, she's one of the Malayalam film actresses, which talks about all these issues, and we need to address this. All of these are showing a common malaise that exists in our system, where rights of women and the safety of women is not taken seriously. So read about this particular article. Then coming to another article, which is Delhi to Kiev via Warsaw. Now, the Honorable Prime Minister is now visiting both these countries, Poland and Kiev. He will be the first Prime Minister to visit Kiev after Ukraine was born out of USSR, and the first Prime Minister to visit Warsaw after, I think, 70 years. So I think 79 he Morarji Desai visited. So if you see our traditional approach, our traditional foreign policy approach towards the entire Europe was limited to few major countries. We used to think about only few countries. We used to think about Russia. We used to think about France, Germany, UK. These were our traditional countries that when we thought about Europe, we used to think about this. But the strategy has changed now. Now there was a philosopher, and this is something that you should be aware about from your GS point of view. There was a philosopher, there was a geographer, and I have read this theory because I had geography optional in my first attempt along with economics. This Mackinder guy had talked about something called as rimland and heartland theory. Now he basically says that heartland is the most important portion of land in the world, and this happens to be Central Asia. So anyone who controls Central Asia will basically control. Someone who controls East Europe will control Heartland. Or someone who controls Heartland will control the world island, and someone who controls the world island commands the entire world. So basically, command over Heartland, which is the heart of Asia, which is the heart of Asia and Europe, which is the Central Asian portion, is extremely important. Now, till recently, for 2014, our interactions with the Central Asian countries, our interaction with the Central European countries was very limited. But now, if you see, the Prime Minister has recently gone to, I think before this he'd gone to Vienna, and he's had and both the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister had number of talks and number of visits in these particular countries, in the Central Asian countries and the Central European and the East European countries. Now the reason is, and you should not think that India through one act or through one visit can resolve the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to achieve our multi-alignment, we are trying to achieve our multipolarity, that we do not believe in zero-sum game, that we will only talk to Russia and we will not talk to Ukraine. We believe in multiple, multiple strands of diplomacy, whereby we can have a robust relationship with Russia, but we can also have a robust relationship with Ukraine, understand all these different factors, and then have a diplomatic relation with all of them. So the idea is not to basically be brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine. I will be very surprised if that happens. But there are already countries which can do this. US can do this very easily. But this is not the reason. The idea is that these countries have become extremely important. The region of Ukraine, the region of Poland is extremely important. Poland is one of the fastest growing economies in the entire Europe, and we need to have good relationship. As I told you, our relationship earlier was only with Russia, Germany, France, and Britain. Now we have expanded this, and in the last 2 terms, the Prime Minister have traveled to Europe 27 times, and 37 heads he has met. Then now we are also this is also seen, our engagement with the Europe is also seen with respect to economic engagement. We've had trade negotiations with the EU. We have had investment agreement with EFTA, technology initiative with UK, joint defense corridor industrial ownership with France, and then we have IMEC as well. So we have started this collective diplomacy where we are also talking to different parts of Europe, be it Eastern Europe, be it Nordics, be it Baltics. We are talking to all of them, because each particular country has a different kind of nuanced say in the European affairs. So this is basically realignment and central alignment of India's geopolitics. Then excuse me. Coming to, you can read, if you want to read this article, folks, you can read deeper social justice, which talks about the verdict, which talks about the sub classification of reservation, and what we need to do is we need to bring out the most backward Dalits out. So you can read this. This is about cricket. If you want to read about that, you can do that. Let's move to broad definitions in Telecom Act and renewed tussle between telecos and OTTs. Now, there is this discussion that has started happening in the Telecom Act. The Telecom Act is going under revision, under amendment, and just like the Broadcasters Bill, this is again a contentious issue. Now the issue is that the telecom players, the Airtel, Vodafone Idea, and then the Jio, says that we have invested so much of money in spectrum, in all these technologies, in 5G, in 6G. We are investing so much of money, but we provide the same essential service which the OTTs do. OTTs provide, give you like WhatsApp, Google Meet. They give you messaging services, they give you calling services, they give you video calling services. All of them are given by OTT services, which is the same as this, but they have been treated very differently. So the telecom operators basically are saying that since the services that are there are very similar, the OTT platform should be subject to the same regulatory and licensing requirements as compared to the traditional telecom companies, because of the coming of these these OTTs, the use of Airtel and the use of Jio and the use of all these for calling has actually reduced. So this is something that they say, but the OTT platforms say that they are only built on the top of these cellular networks. So they are not an independent cellular network in itself. They are built on top of it. And if you start doing, if you start regulating and over regulating these areas, then you will stifle competition, you will stifle innovation, you will increase the cost for consumers, because the now you have so many options and you have so many options to work. So therefore you should not bring them under the same act, which is the Telecom Act. Then the industry has said that the government has said that we are going to talk to various stockholders, and after talking to various stakeholders, we are going to have a policy with respect to the same. Then another important news is mobile banking has made credit dispersal fast, but the deposit mobilization is still a physical activity. An important concern that you should be aware about in the Indian economy is that right now our if you see the quarter ended in 2024 June, the customers are looking at various avenues to park their funds, and they're basically saying that we don't want to deposit our funds only in banks. So we can deposit in, say, Paytm, we can deposit in mutual funds, we can deposit in cryptocurrencies, we can use that in FNO markets. So they're saying that we can invest in various sectors, whereas the credit which is easily available, credit, you just want credit, you will easily get credit, but creating deposit for banks is has become an issue, and therefore you have this lag between higher credit growth and a lower deposit growth, and that could lead to an illiquidity on account of banking structure, and something that needs to be monitored by banks. Then read about SEBI proposes a review of right issue norms, if you want to read this thing. Then new note floated by DPIIT is basically seeking a distinction between online game of skill and online and games of chance. I told you about this. There was a Karnataka court judgment, and then there was a judgment by the Supreme Court. You have something called as games of skills, and then you have games of chance. For example, say betting on say cricket is basically a game of chance. Who will win? India will win or Pakistan will? Is a game of chance. But say something like, it is said that something like Dream 11 is a game of skill, whereby you're choosing number of players, which players will perform well, and then based on that you are going to earn money. So this is required because the government is mulling over of introducing 100% FDI under to make India as a global gaming hub. So we are trying to incorporate 100% FDI in this particular area, but we need to distinguish between games of skill and games of chance. You will not allow 100% FDI in game of chance, but we will allow 100% FDI in games of skill. Then CCI preliminary assessment, Reliance Industry and Disney's have come together, and this could hurt competition, is something that is there. You can read this. Now coming to the explain page, there is a new nasal spray that has been introduced. The US FDA has approved this first nasal spray for treating anaphylaxis. Basically, suppose you might have seen that in certain areas, what happens is that you eat certain food, or you're basically bit by an insect, or there are certain medications, and you have an allergic reaction, and at times because of this allergic reaction people actually die as well. So and the only way forward is to basically administer epinephrine. Now epinephrine basically relaxes the hormones, and basically helps the body to cope up with this stressful situation by relaxing muscles. And by relaxing muscles, what happens is that your airways, your basically your windpipe basically relaxes, and therefore your blood vessels also relax, and then you can breathe easily. So you will not have that anxiety kind of an attack. So this particular nasal spray called Neffy has been launched, and it has already been tested, because of the fact that earlier this used to be given through a injection. Now not everyone, suppose I am going through a certain thing like this, if you are not a trained doctor, you will be very worried to give me an injection. But if it's a nasal spray, anyone can give you a nasal spray. So therefore this is possible, and this is important for India, because India also has these issues, because we are going towards a western diet. We are going to a western I mean common allergens like nuts, milk, fish, etc. And because of this, we our population might be facing certain things like this, and therefore we need it. Then US elections and climate change. The running mate that Kamala Harris had selected is Tim Walz. And Tim Walz is basically one of the persons who is a champion of climate change, and he says that we need to work towards climate change. We need to reduce our climate footprint. He's absolutely against Donald Trump, and under Donald Trump, what we saw that he withdrew from the this thing. He withdrew from the Paris Agreement, and both him and Elon Musk are have a similar view on climate change. But at the same point of time, he talks about the fact that we need to move towards a climate responsible economy, and we need to reduce our emissions, and we need to go back to that path of UNFCCC of reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. So read about this, and lateral entry we have already talked about. There have been number of studies of water inside Martian rocks, so this is not something which is new. So with this, we end our newspaper of the day, folks.